Good afternoon. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge on IC Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications and Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast, thenewscasters.com. If you like birds like I do, you want to take care of them in the wintertime. And so I've got an article for you right here. It's on gardenerspath.com, which is a fantastic website. All kinds of advice out there for you. But this is 10 tips for feeding wild birds in the winter. So wild birds, as the article says, are a pleasure to watch in our yard during the winter months. But it takes more than just food now to create a welcoming stopover so they can stop and say hi there to you during the winter months of the year. Our feathered friends have other important needs as well. For several years, the author says, my husband and I have dedicated time and resources to create a hospitable environment for birds and other wildlife on our small farm, particularly in the winter months. Let's go ahead and get started. So it says, I wanted to be sure we're keeping wild birds safe as they dine in our feeders. I'm sure you do too. So we're going to talk about all those absolutely fantastic things. And I've got 19 tips. Then we're going to go a little bit more in depth. But number one is skip the crackers and bread. And we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. Number two is offer 3 types of food. Number 3, which is extremely important, is provide water. They have to have water to drink in the wintertime just like they do in the summertime. Supply a source of grit of some sort. We'll dive into that. Clean up under the feeders. Relocate food stations seasonally. Number 7, clean and disinfect feeders. Number 8, offer different feeder types. Number 9, hang feeders at the right height. And then number 10 is locate food stations that are out of wind, and we'll skip on that just a little bit further. But number 1, and this is an important one, skip the bread and the crackers. You may have grown up saving stale bread or crackers to feed to ducks or other birds in the winter. So if your plans for feeding wild birds include giving them your stale baked goods, it's time for a reset right now. So let's find out why. So this goes on to say, for wild birds, foods like crackers and bread do not make nourishing treats during the winter or basically at any time. So as far as our feathered friends go, these should be treated like junk food rather than healthy meals. Instead, this winter, plan to purchase food formulated specifically for wild birds, while we are going to look at exactly what that means next. So let's talk about number 2. Number 2 says offer 3 types of food. So what does that mean? Well, there are essentially 3 types of food that are appropriate for feeding wild birds in the winter or at any time of the year. Small seeds, large seeds, and suet or peanut butter. Now, small seeds include canary seed, millet, and these small seeds will attract buntings, cardinals, doves, goldfinches, house finches, jays, juncos, the purple finches, quail, pine siskins, sparrow, and all kinds of these just really cute little birds that are out there. We've got to take good care of them. I'll tell you what, we love cardinals. And so we have, as a matter of fact, when I was in the 2nd grade, we had, I think it was for Mother's Day, and we were making gifts for Mother's Day. And so we had to pick our favorite bird. My favorite bird has always been the red cardinal. And of course, a red cardinal is going to be of the male species. And if they're a little brownish or grayish, they're usually from the female species. And so out of paper mache, I'm sure it was a mess, but out of paper mache in the 2nd grade, I did a cardinal. So anyway, I'm pretty sure that something happened to it. But there are essentially 3 types of food. We talked about those. And then the next picture, well, I think that was number 2. Was that? Yeah, so you see the kind of a grayish, it's got a little bit of red on it at the top of the birdhouse. So that's probably going to be your female. And then those 2 birds that are over there at the side on each end right there, they're probably the male species. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about number 3. And on with number 2, continuing on. So large seeds include safflower, black oil sunflower, peanuts, shelled corn, and striped sunflower seeds. I know I had plenty of those when I had my sunflowers in the garden this year. Now, with black oil sunflower seed being the real crowd pleaser, they say, these larger seeds attract specimens such as cardinals, the chickadees, the goldfinches, and then also the house finches, the jays as well, purple finches, sparrows, woodpeckers. I don't know, they want woodpeckers out, but anyway, I think of Woody Woodpecker. He was annoying in the cartoon. But you can either have shelled or unshelled peanuts. Just make sure you buy them unsalted and that they have no other ingredients. Sometimes you can buy peanuts that'll be, like, I don't know, flavored of some sort. They say not to feed that to the birds. Now, you can find unsalted, in-shell, whole peanuts in 10-pound bag at Tractor Supply, they say. So, both suet and peanut butter may be helpful sources of fat for wild birds. Only put out the suet during and that's spelled S-U-E-T, during the cold months of winter. However, it can spoil in warmer conditions. So the suet and the peanut butter will attract species like bluebirds, chickadees, goldfinches, jays, mockingbirds, nuthatches, and again, those woodpeckers. So what you'll do is just get a little bit of peanut butter and just kind of spread a little bit of it on the side of a tree, and it'll attract them. And they like that. And again, it's a real good source of fat. I just never really thought about that before. But anyway, that would be, let's see if there's a picture of that. No, we're going to go on to number 3 right here. Well, if you're wondering about offering ingredients like milo, oats, and oats this winter, most wild birds ignore milo and oats and wheat. And the uneaten seeds can cause the rest of the mix to go bad. So avoid seed mixes and include those ingredients unless you are specifically trying to attract doves, pheasants, or quail. Now, number 3, we're talking about water. Okay, so, they have to have water for digestion, right? Just like we do. So another necessity for a thriving community of wildlife in winter is a source of clean, fresh water. Now, you may have bird baths for your feathered friends to use during the warmer months. However, in the winter, water, we know that can freeze, which is going to be my question coming up. And remain frozen until you take action to prevent it. So let's just see what they say. So the author says, my approach is to put out a shallow stainless steel round bowl of water, the same type of water dishes that her pets drink from. I have those also for Buddy. You can find the 2-quart stainless steel water dishes available at Amazon. Now, during the long cold winters in USDA hardiness zone 5B, she says, I fill these dishes with fresh water every morning. And by the way, all of your pets, if you have dogs that stay outside during the winter, or cats or whatever, make sure you give them fresh water. And it starts getting this green funky stuff on it, don't let it get that far. But if it does, you can clean them really easy by soaking them in vinegar. Just the cheap store brand vinegar, that works just fine. Okay, so the birds take advantage of the water during the day, and then the water freezes overnight. So what she does is the next morning, I dump out the ice that's formed and refill the dishes with fresh water. So that's low budget, do it yourself, however. If you prefer something that won't require attention as often, and you have an outdoor outlet handy, you can use a heated bird bath to provide your feathered friends with drinking water in the winter time instead. Now, this heated bird bath can be used throughout the year. Just unplug it during the warm months. It's made from a powder-coated steel and plastic. Measures about 14 inches across and 2 inches deep, and it holds about 2 quarts of water. Now, it prevents water from freezing when the temperature is as low as -10. Plus, it can either be clamped onto a deck or set on the ground. Either way, you'll find those at the Gardener's Supply. Now, even in the winter, be sure you clean the bird baths and the water bowls every few days, or more frequently if the water is dirty. If you're like us and you live out in the country, things will get a little bit more dirty than they do sometimes in the city. Now, scrub with soapy water. Use a mixture of 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 9 parts water to disinfect them, and then you want to rinse them. And so another thing I want to talk to you about, and this was my deal, like I'm thinking of my chickens. So number 4 is to supply a form of grit. So let's talk about that. So if you've ever kept backyard chickens like we have, you know birds need grit to help them grind down their food. And that includes the wild birds also. Gosh, I didn't know that. So for your wild birds, let's go ahead and talk just a little bit about that. Wondering why that is. Our feathered friends don't have teeth. So gizzards and grit do the job of grinding food in place of them not having teeth. So if you have sandy soil, your feathered visitors may be getting plenty of grit like I have right here on this farm. It is kind of sandy as they peck for seeds on the ground. However, the soil could be covered with snow, or you could be like my friends up in Mentone and have kind of a clay-like soil. Now, a simple way to provide wild birds with grit is to sprinkle ground eggshells at the base of the feeder, or mix some in with your seed mix. Now, to kill bacteria, make sure the eggshells have been heated to at least 170 degrees first before you start grinding them. Okay, that way you can use like a coffee grinder to grind those with as well. Okay, number 5. Oh, we've got time for number 5. So number 5, clean up under the feeders, and that's essential as well. You don't want to return to your dinner table day by day. You don't, without washing it off, do you? Likewise, if you commit to providing food for your feathered friends in the wintertime, you need to also commit to keeping their dining area clean for hygiene reasons. Just like with big crowds of humans coming in when large groups of birds congregate, it increases the risk of disease spread, even in the wintertime. So diseases such as the avian flu spread through multiple routes, including feces, nasal secretions, and saliva. So those discarded shells and droppings do pile up under the feeder, right? So every once in a blue moon now, you need to periodically, like at least once every couple of weeks, I'd say, you need to remove any piles of debris to keep conditions sanitary. And I highly recommend you do that. Let's get into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you.
The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors, and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas, or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonesmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
Okay, we're back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Remember, truth matters with us, and so we like to give you all kinds of details about everything in life. So if you have a question, or if you have something you would like for me to do a little research on, I'll be glad to do that for you. You can send an email to donna@donnasedge.com. And don't forget the newscasters.com podcast, by the way. We're there as well. Number of fantastic talk show hosts are there. So go ahead and check them out. TheNewscasters.com. Make sure you put the in front of it. TheNewscasters.com. And again, my email address is donna@donnasedge.com. So good to be with you today. We're talking about birds. How do we take care of them? How do we know they don't freeze to death? How do we know they have nutrition? And we talked about a number of those already. We're about to get to number 6, but let's just do a quick recap. And number 1, and by the way, this is a great website, gardenerspath.com, gardenerspath.com. So we saw the pictures and of the beautiful birds, and of course I let y'all know that, you know, I love canaries, but I'll just have to say I love all birds. So don't feed them crackers and bread. That's non-essential. There's things like seeds and stuff like that. And then number 2 was offer 3 types of food. You need to get small seeds, you get the medium-sized seeds, and then you also want to do something with grit on it. You also want to do the large seeds there as well. The large seeds can be something like peanuts or something like that. And peanut butter, good. Get a little peanut butter. That's got the fat in it that the birds still need some fat on them, okay? And it also helps keep them warmer. So just get some peanut butter and spread it on a tree or something, and they'll go right to it. Number 3, provide fresh water for them. That's essential. And also number 4, they need a source of grit. That could be just crumbled up, just crushed up eggshells. Now, if you have a sandy soil, you're probably okay, like we do. It's gritty, I tell you. But if you're like my friends in some parts of the country who have a clay-type soil, they need some kind of a grit, so make sure you put that out there for them. Okay, now let's talk about cleaning up under the feeders. We need to do that too. And that prohibits disease from spreading. So it's essential you do that as well. Okay, now I think this is a great idea. And this is relocating their food stations seasonally, okay, because you're going to have a little birdhouse. And I think you're doing it, and I know that's what I've done in the past. You'll put those out there thinking, well, you know, they They'll remember that's where they go. I promise you, if you put food out there and relocate it, they're going to find it. So, in addition to periodically removing the piles of holes that accumulate around the wildlife dining areas, you should also plan to relocate the food stations occasionally. And it's just to kind of keep everything clean for our feathered friends. Relocating those food stations at the start of a new season is a good plan. So, at the beginning of winter, move the station to a new location. Do this again at the beginning of spring and then again at the start of summer and fall, just rotating those stations between different spots. Now, this rotation routine here is another step designed to help prevent the outbreak of any kind of sickness among your flock of wild visitors. And who knows, if they get sick, then if you have chickens, backyard chickens, they could get sick too. So just be really careful about that. Number 7 is clean and disinfect your feeders. Yeah, I think that's topical right there. Okay, so, and let's see what's in this one right here. This is what I wanted you to see. So clean and disinfect your feeders. So while tidying up below the food station, that will help in the hygiene department. The feeders themselves also need to be cleaned periodically, okay? So plan to clean and disinfect your feeders at the beginning of the winter season and again at the end of each season if you plan to offer, continue offering food throughout the year. So if the bird seed becomes damp or it becomes clumped up, it'll quickly start to develop mold. So that's why you want to take care of that. Also, you need to clean and disinfect more often if this happens. If you have a rainy season, we generally have a pretty rainy December, and kind of makes up for some of the lack of rain that we have usually around September, October, and November. So we're kind of making up for it right now. So do clean it out, because if moisture gets in there, mold happens, and that's just going to make everybody sick. So we don't want that to happen. Now, if you've noticed any sick-looking birds in your yard, just remove the feeders for a couple of weeks. You may also want to reposition them in fresh locations after you clean those. Now, to clean the feeders, this is what you do. Scrub them with water and soap. They can also be disinfected with a mixture of 1 part of 3%, make sure it's the 3% hydrogen peroxide, to 9 parts water. Rinse them well, allow them to dry before you start refilling. Again, if you don't allow them to dry, you're going to get more moisture in there. And all it takes is just a few drops of moisture, and then everything is going to get moldy. So be careful about that. Number 8, what I want you to think about with this one right here is offer different types of feeding trays. Okay, so if you'd like to attract a diverse assortment of wildlife to your yard this winter, try setting out a selection of different types of bird feeders. I mean, different birds like different things, right? I mean, they're just as choosy and choicey as we are. So the different types include those tubular models. You see those. Also trays, window units, and also hoppers. I like that one. As you're facing the picture right there, you look on the far left. This one's like a little cage-like, and it looks like they put some corn in there or something. And then that way they can kind of get in there and click on it, eat down that corn on the cob. Now, when you're using multiple feeders, make sure you spread them out in various locations to prevent a large number of birds gathering at the same spot. Then they'll start fighting for it. So the best thing to do, have several different spots in the front yard, different spots in the backyard, maybe with the side yard or whatever. And that way there's enough for everybody to get some, enough for everybody to go around. Now, this is just another tactic also to reduce the risk of disease spread that happens sometimes during the winter and also throughout the year. So again, we're looking out for our little feathered friends right there. We don't want them to get sick. Cleanliness is extremely important. I like to clean mine with a little bit of, and I do this a lot, so I'll get a little bit of Dawn dishwashing detergent, and it cleans them really squeaky clean. Now, sometimes I'll use a little bit of vinegar also to make sure all of the soap residue is off. You've got to make sure of that as well. So make sure all the soap residue is off. You can do, again, just plain old white, cheap vinegar that you can get at the grocery store. It doesn't take much. And then just clean them off that way, and then going ahead and rinse them. Make sure they're good and rinsed. Now, if you notice a little bit of clouding, if it's some kind of a plastic or a glass kind of a wall, If you see any kind of clouding, that means you didn't get all the soap off. So make sure that dump it in vinegar again, and that way you get them all cleaned up. Okay, so number 9 is to hang the feeders in the right height. So if you've ever wondered what in the world is the best height for hanging bird feeders, isn't that important? Yes, it's right. And it's about 5 to 6 feet high is what they're saying. You can put them on a tree, just like this gentleman right here is doing. It's probably this little girl right there. And so, and one reason, if your kids are doing it, it needs to be a little bit lower than that. But this is just the perfect height right here. And then also, if it rains a lot, it's going to keep, a big deal is it's going to keep little critters out, like sometimes your cats, and then rats and stuff like that. It's going to be, especially rats, man, I hate those things. But it's going to keep the birds out of reach of cats, as well as keeping it easily accessible for you too. Got to think about you when you're going to go out there and refill it. So heights above 6 feet aren't a problem for our feathered friends. But if you don't want to use a ladder, which I don't want to do, especially when it could be rainy, it could be slick, could have a little bit of ice out there to refill the food station, then the winter weather has made the ground slick with snow, right? So make sure that it's something you don't have to climb up on a ladder about. You don't want to have to do that. Okay, number 10, and this is the last one. What you want to do is locate food stations out of the wind. So let's talk about that one. Okay, so if possible, arrange the food stations so that they have some kind of protection over cold winter winds. This means that first you'll have to identify which direction the winter winds tend to come from your location. Now, if you're not aware of prevailing wind patterns, it's quite possible that strong winter winds are a rare occurrence in your area. You can also skip that step if that's the case. Different structures can provide wind blocks, including buildings, maybe hedgerows, and trees. Now, conifers in particular will provide good protection in winter since they don't drop their leaves. So keep this in mind when you are actually positioning feeders. If we got time for a couple more, we're going to do 12. Okay, so number 11, prevent window collisions. Oh man, I've seen that happen before. Maybe you'll hear a knock on you'll think somebody's trying to knock on your window, and it winds up being a bird, and it kills it, and it's on the floor. So wanting to invite our feathered friends for a feast is a Hartwell sentiment. Yet it can be dangerous to these animals because of the hazards they might encounter in our yards during the winter and throughout the year. So that includes windows. So according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, window collisions kill an average of, I didn't know this, 600 million birds a year in the United States, making windows the second biggest human-caused threat to birds. Wonder what threat number 1 is? We'll find that out in just a minute. So windows reflect both the sky and the vegetation. Remember that. And sadly, birds can't tell the difference between reflected sky and trees and actual sky and trees, making large panes of glass especially dangerous to them. So be very wary about that. So while big, shiny skyscrapers in cities are the biggest problems, even window panes on houses are responsible for their fair share of bird kills. And large windows are particularly problematic. And we don't want that to happen. Thankfully, there are ways to make these windows homes safe for the birds. The first is to position the food stations wisely. A lot of experts recommend locating feeders within 3 feet of a window. At least 3 feet, the bird won't build up enough momentum and will be less likely to hurt itself if it flies into the window. Placing the food stations within 3 feet is, if that's not possible, it's best to place them more than 30 feet away from panes of glass. At this distance, wild birds will less likely hit the windows as they approach and depart from food stations. Yeah, you've got to remember that the reflections on the windows can cause some issues. My name is Donna. Thank you so much for watching Donna's Edge on IC Radio. Really appreciate you being with me every day, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 3 p.m. If you have suggestions for shows, it's easy to do. Send an email, donna@donnasedge.com, donna@donnasedge.com. I'll be more than glad to take care of that for you. You take care. See you next time.